Welcome back, everyone. We are back at my computer because in this video we're going to be breaking down entirely the $2 trillion bill that was passed in an effort to help people, businesses, corporations, and families in this time of need. It was the largest relief package ever passed in American history, even adjusted with inflation, and it has that magical D word, trillion. Now, its name is the CARES Act, technically, or the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, and it was a response to help the economic fallout that's taking place right now and might continue for a very long time. We truly don't know what will happen, but it will definitely have a greater influence on businesses in the future, even decades and centuries from now. The country will really never be the same. How businesses operate may never be the same. This is truly something that we'll never see, at least in my lifetime or your lifetime, ever again, hopefully. Now, just to put into perspective how big this bill truly was, it actually made the Stimulus Act passed in 2009 dwarfed. That was a $831 billion act, and that was a response to the Great Recession, as we know. This package amounted to a total of 10% of US GDP, or gross domestic product. Now, a big component of this is actually direct cash payments directly into the hands of American people and families. So we're going to be covering that as well. We're going to be covering what it's going to be doing for corporations, how much of the $2 trillion is actually going to businesses, how much is going to people. We're going to dive right in, so let's get started. This visual here gives an easy to read, very legible for dummies kind of, how the CARES Act is actually going to provide relief to several groups impacted by the pandemic. And so it's actually, the majority of it is actually going to be going to individuals. That's an estimated $560 billion to individuals themselves. Now, the second largest beneficiary is going to be big corporations, and that's an estimated $500 billion for corporations. Obviously, that was a very, very big concern by both sides, more specifically the Democratic side, that passed the bill, just because in the 2008 recession, the big banks were bailed out, the big corporations benefited the most, and individuals and families really got crumbs compared to how the big corporations benefited. Coming in third place is going to be small businesses. There's going to be a lot of small business loans that we're going to be getting into. That's an estimated $377 billion. And then you're looking at state and local governments will be helped out with an estimated $340 billion, and then it's going to be going to public health. That's just above $153 billion. Education is going to be seeing an estimated $43.7 billion, and a safety net of $26 billion. That's just some reserve on the side to be safe. This bill was meant to keep individuals and businesses afloat during this unprecedented time, the freeze on our daily lives as we know it. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell from Kentucky said in the speech on the Senate floor that no economic policy can fully end the hardship so long as the public health requires that we put so much of our commerce on ice. He said this isn't even a stimulus package, it is emergency relief. Emergency relief, that's what this is. So everyone's wondering, when are they going to get their checks? When are they going to see money in their hands? So let's take a look at individuals. The bill includes several elements aimed at helping keep people engaged in the economy. Now, granted, a big argument was that, look, a $1,200 payment for someone in New York isn't going to do the same as $1,200 for a family in Alabama or Kentucky. And so people are saying that it really should have been scaled and on a sliding scale type of system where, depending on your location, your demographic, where you actually live, that will determine how much you get. And so that's up for argument. You can tell me down in the comments below, do you think the payments that we're expecting are going to do enough? Do you think they should be more or less? Tell me down your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't seen any of my previous videos covering the virus and how it may affect investors and the majority of people in this country, I have done a few videos. Please be sure that you check out the links in the description. I'll put them down below. So that means direct cash for many, plus expanded employment benefits and new rules for things like filing your taxes and making retirement contributions. Tax day has been moved from April 15th now to July 15th. Not that I think everyone's going to be necessarily rushing to file their taxes and all hyped to do so, but there is a 90-day grace period now, and so you can file your taxes on July 15th. So cash payments estimated to total $300 billion. Most individuals earning less than $75,000 can expect a one-time cash payment of $1,200, that number that we have heard floated around so much. Married couples would each receive a check, and families would get $500 per child. Now, you may think an adult means in this country 18 years or older, and so they should actually receive a $1,200 check, but that is not the case. When you file your taxes, let's say in the year 2019, if you listed your child that is, let's say, even 19, 20, 21 years old as a dependent, they are not going to receive a check because they are labeled as a dependent. And so you're going to be getting $500 per child. That means a family of 4 earning less than $150,000 combined can expect $3,400. The checks start to phase down after that and disappear completely for people making more than $99,000 and couples making more than $198,000. So these numbers, I do believe, are fair. I think they are something that the majority of Americans can actually benefit from. There are not too many families in the majority of the country that are making more total combined than $198,000 a year if you look at the median and average income. So I do think these numbers are fair. What do you think? Again, tell me down your thoughts in the comments below. I do think, though, that these numbers work out and they are reasonable. So here's a nice visual here of who's getting checks by adjusted gross income. So add an additional $500, though, for each child, which would increase eligibility limits depending on the number of children. And so if you take a look here, up to $75,000, you get that full payment. Individuals, $1,200. And if you exceed that $99,000 mark, no payment. That's for individuals. If you file your taxes jointly, though, that will be a total payment of $2,400 for one couple. But that number starts to fade away as you start exceeding the six-figure mark. And again, these cash payments are based on either your 2018 or 2019 tax filings. So people who receive Social Security benefits but don't file tax returns are still eligible. So that is very nice. I think that was important to put in there, that people that are on Social Security, and as you know, that's not necessarily a reliable source of income for many, and many people on Social Security are struggling. So that is nice that even though they don't file their tax returns, they are still eligible. They don't need to file their taxes. Their checks will be based on information provided by the SSA, or Social Security Administration. Now, many people are unemployed. Unemployment is expected to reach record highs that may even exceed the Great Depression. Those numbers are yet to come out, but Janet Yellen, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve, has already said that unemployment is most likely to be at around 12 to 14% already. As you know, New York is being hit very, very hard. That's where I'm from, and many people, millions and millions of people have filed for unemployment. These numbers we haven't seen in what feels like many generations, and so it is important to know that unemployed people will be receiving benefits. They are going to be getting a hand. So let's take a look at what majority of Americans who are unemployed and not essential workers, they are going to be receiving. So extra unemployment payments, the $260 billion estimated cost is subject to change based on the number of people filing for unemployment. So the bill will make major changes to unemployment assistance, increasing the benefits and broadening who is eligible. And so states will continue to pay unemployment to people who qualify. That amount varies state by state, as does the amount of time people are allowed to claim it. The bill will actually add an extra $600 per week from the federal government on top of whatever base amount a worker receives from the state. So that boosted payment will last for 4 months. That was a very generous part and component of the bill. So you're actually going to be getting, so in New York at least, the number that you could maximum receive for unemployment is $504. You might have heard that number floated before. And so you're actually getting an additional $600 on top of that, in addition to that unemployment payment from the federal government as part of this stimulus package. So I think that is very generous, very fair, and people and individuals who are left for work don't know when to be returning to work. Businesses are shut down indefinitely, at least in New York. So that was very generous, and so people are going to be receiving a total over $1,100 in total for being unemployed. For example, if an out-of-work person is receiving the national average of about $340 per week, and so that is just the number that is the average for unemployment per week. And under the new federal program, their take-home pay will now be $940 a week, And the legislation also adds 13 weeks of unemployment insurance. So even if you are already on unemployment and have been having nothing to do with the virus, it will actually add an additional 13 weeks of unemployment insurance benefits as well. People nearing the maximum number of weeks allowed by the state would get an extension. So new filers would also be allowed to collect those benefits for the longer period, that additional 13 weeks or a few months. Now, very important, people that are gig workers, freelancers that are not necessarily employed by a corporation or a company or firm, they are working by themselves. They don't know when their next order or sale will be. People that are freelancers doing things such as art, photography, things of that nature. Typically, self-employed people, freelancers and contracts, can't actually apply for unemployment if they're not getting work and gigs. So this bill will actually create a new temporary pandemic unemployment assistance program through the end of this year to help people who lose work as a direct result of the public health emergency. And as I mentioned, tax returns, some people have not filed their 2019 tax returns, but that's okay. The filing deadline has been extended to July 15th. The IRS also says that people who have filed or plan to can still expect to receive a refund if they are owed one. Many people are boycotting and protesting, saying we shouldn't even have to pay for school for the remainder of the school year, as it seems that it's not even like anyone's going to return to school. So to be generous, they included with student loans, employers can provide up to $5,250 in tax-free student loan repayment benefits. That means an employer could contribute to loan payments and workers wouldn't have to include that money as income. Now, if you take a look at the actual loan payments, most student loans payments are actually suspended, and so let's take a look here. And this was included in the $2 trillion economic stimulus package, which was finally signed by Trump. And it's creating some confusion for borrowers, many of whom are newly unemployed and in need of relief. And so the congressional legislation extended the forbearance period from 60 days to 6 months and made the suspension of payments automatic. So you don't have to worry about student loan payments in the meantime. And the waivers would also be implemented retroactively. So in a sense, in the past, any borrower who has made a payment since then can request a refund as of March 13th. Read more to see that if you'll qualify. There's a lot of information online that you can look up regarding your specific type of loan, what kind of school you go to. All of that can be found online. You're going to want to dig in some more research on student loans, but we're taking a look at just essentially the overview of the stimulus package in this video. And insurance coverage, the bill will require all private insurance plans to cover COVID-19 treatments and vaccine and make all coronavirus tests 100% free. So if you do get a test, you will not have to worry about actually paying for it. Small businesses are getting absolutely crushed. Restaurants, stores, retail, getting absolutely plummeted, hammered. No customers, shut down indefinitely. You see it right on your streets probably. All the stores shut down. It's a sad thing to see, but hopefully there will be a comeback. The main feature for small businesses are emergency grants and forgivable loan program for companies with 500 or fewer employees. There are also changes to rules for expensive and deductions meant to make it easier for companies to keep employees on the payroll and stay open in the near term. So these emergency grants will provide $10 billion for grants up to $10,000 to provide emergency funds for small businesses who need to cover immediate operating costs. Small businesses, you have electricity, you have rent to pay, all these different bills and expenses and payroll to pay out. So there is a large component of the bill that is for small businesses. Forgivable loans. There is $350 billion allocated for the Small Business Administration, or the SBA, to provide loans of up to $10 million per business. Any portion of that loan used to maintain payroll, keep workers on the books, or pay for rent, mortgage, and existing debt could be forgiven, provided workers stay employed through the end of June. Relief for existing loans. There is $17 billion to cover 6 months of payments for small businesses already using SBA or Small Business Administration loans. You might want to call the hotlines. You might want to dig in deeper to see where your business, if you are operating a small business, where you can actually qualify, what kind of grants and loans you can obtain, and how your payroll is going to be paid. There is a large amount for big businesses as well. The bill will set aside roughly $500 billion in loans and other money for big corporations. These companies will have to pay the government back and will be subject to public disclosures and other requirements. People were even floating around the idea of that the government would get equity in the businesses in exchange for these payments, so they're not just going to be receiving a handout, a bailout. So that was something smart. I think that was interesting and a very clever proposal compared to what you saw with 2008, 2009. Airlines getting very hit hard. If you take a look at all the airline stocks, Delta, Spirit, American Airlines stocks are now at a very small portion of their value that they once were at. About $58 billion is allocated to help airlines stay open. One portion of that money is set aside to help cover employee wages, salaries, and benefits, divided up to $25 billion for passenger air carriers, up to $4 billion for cargo air carriers, and up to $3 billion for airline contractors. If you are a believer in trickle-down economics, this money would hopefully help employees and the essential workers that are still out there on the front lines. So if you are a believer in that, that money would then get trickled down through tax breaks and payroll benefits. That money could go to good use for employees as well. So really, if you think about it, there could be a larger break and relief for individuals than previously expected. And interestingly, there's a stock buyback ban. Any company receiving a loan under the program is barred from making stock buybacks for the term of the loan plus 1 year. That was a great concern for people, is that are these companies just going to be able to buy their stock back in an effort to save their companies? Reporting requirements: all loans, their terms, and any investments or other assistance provided by the government must be publicly disclosed. This all must be public information. Oversight: the bill creates a special inspector general to oversee pandemic recovery. That person, along with a special committee, would provide oversight of all loans and other uses of taxpayer dollars. No benefit for Trump. The president, vice president, members of the cabinet, and members of Congress are barred from benefiting from the money carved out for corporations. That also extends to the spouse, child, son-in-law, or daughter-in-law of these individuals. All businesses: the bill establishes a fully refundable tax credit for businesses of all sizes that are closed or distressed to help them keep workers on the payroll. So the goal is to get these employees hired back or put on paid furlough to make sure they have jobs to return to. The credit covers up to 50% of payroll on the first $10,000 of compensation, including health benefits for each employee. For employers with more than 100 full-time employees, the credit is for wages paid to employees when they are not providing services because of the coronavirus. Eligible employees with 100 or fewer full-time employees could use this deduction even if they aren't closed. Public health: there is, of course, a large public health concern for the safety of all people around the globe. So lawmakers want to supplement community and private health systems to help meet the influx of new patients. So these hospitals, there's going to be $100 billion for hospitals responding to the coronavirus. Community health centers: the bill is going to provide $1.32 billion in immediate additional funding for community centers that provide healthcare services for roughly 28 million people. There's going to be $11 billion for drug access, for diagnostics, treatments, and vaccines. The bill will also include $80 million for the FDA to prioritize and expedite approval of new drugs. The vaccine has not come yet. There's talk of whether or not certain drugs may help or aid with the virus, but we do not have a cure or vaccine just yet, nor do we really even know too much about the virus. We only know so much. CDC and prevention is going to get $4.3 billion. Veterans are going to benefit with $20 billion set aside for veterans. Telehealth, so health over the phone, over virtual assistants. This is going to extend the reach of virtual doctor's appointments, so that's something beneficial for people that don't like to do face-to-face doctor appointments, and especially now, there's really no choice as these hospitals and doctors' offices are getting filled up and are getting capped out. Medicine supplies: the bill gives $16 billion to the SNS, or Strategic National Stockpile, to increase availability of equipment, including ventilators and masks. People have been very critical of Trump's response, as well as the communication with governors nationally about getting ventilators. In New York especially, Cuomo and Trump have had at it. And it will also boost hiring for vital healthcare jobs during the public health crisis and speed the development of a vaccine treatments, and faster diagnostic. So on to that safety net, there's going to be a second wave of funding for major food security programs, child nutrition. There's going to be $8.8 billion to give schools more flexibility to provide meals for students. So that was a large concern that these children who rely on schools to obtain meals and eat every single day are potentially going to be left in the dust, but there's going to be some aid given to have more flexibility with these meals. Food stamps, which many people are going to be relying on now due to them being out of work, there's going to be $15.5 billion going to the SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, and the money will help cover the expected costs of new applicants to the program as a result of the virus. And territories, American territories such as Indian reservations, Puerto Rico, Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa will all get additional funds and access to federal nutrition programs. Food banks, there's going to be $450 million for food banks and other community food distribution programs. Now there's families relying on these meals and lining up for them. And the state and local governments will also receive a benefit. It's going to be designated $339.8 billion, nearly $340 billion for programs that will go to state and local governments. It is divided up to put $274 billion toward specific COVID-19 response efforts, including $150 billion in direct aid for those state and local governments running out of cash because of a high number of cases. K-12 schools and community development block grants. There's going to be higher education and programs for children and families, including immediate assistance to child care centers. They're all going to be getting breaks and benefits. As far as education, there's going to be that temporary student loan relief, which we talked about, work-study funds, and it allows schools to turn unused work-study funds into supplemental grants and continue paying work-study wages while schools are suspended, which is nationally happening. Students who are forced to drop out because of the virus wouldn't have that time away from school deducted from their lifetime limits on subsidized loan and Pell Grant eligibility. So these students would also not be asked to pay back any grants or other aid that they've already received. Other programs as well, but that will essentially complete the bill. Obviously, there's so much code. You could look at the actual bill itself, quite lengthy. We're not going to be going into that. But a lot of relief for individuals specifically, and it was nice to see the focus on individuals and families who are really taking a beating the most, on top of the corporations, of course. Bernie especially was making a strong case, even though there's calls for him to drop out of the race immediately. And he was making a strong case and would not sign the bill under any circumstances if corporations were going to receive the majority of the benefits. But we did see a decent amount of bipartisan support this time around. It was refreshing to see that the House of Representatives did overwhelmingly approve it, and there were a few senators protesting and threatening to delay the signing of it, but there was strong bipartisan approval. And remember, this is not even part of the plan for the Federal Reserve to purchase government-backed mortgages and treasury bonds and securities. So I did a whole video on that as well, about what the Federal Reserve is doing to combat this. So it's actually a lot more than $2 trillion, and there's even talks, and they're in the works already, of several waves of economic relief packages to be passed. We'll be looking at those more in depth as well, more phases and waves of these packages as they're coming around. It does look like we might be approaching an apex, a top, a peak of the spread. It looks like there might be some signs of slowdown. Italy has reported slowdown. Spain looking good. China, Wuhan is looking a lot better than, of course, they did. So it is promising and is hopeful. Of course, we have to be realistic. We have to be optimistic. For the audience watching, for all my subscribers and people viewing this, be sure that you are staying safe, practicing that social distancing, keeping those hands washed, wear those face masks when you go out, and only if necessary. For all the essential workers out there that are watching, I do thank you for putting your lives on the line, truly on the front lines. Now, for all the people out there that are aggravated and stressed, really, if you look at it, generations before us were told and forced to go out and put their lives on the line through combat and military force. So all that's being asked of people, my generation, and of course others, is to just stay home, and hopefully you won't find too much aggravation in that. Now, there's so much information online. Be sure to do your research, take advantage of it. Be sure that you do your due diligence on this package, how you could benefit. Look at what your employers can do. If you own a small business, get any assistance and help. I am really, really, really sorry to see what's happening. It's very detrimental, and just the terror and the heartache and stress that people and businesses and families are going through. So be proactive, look into everything. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Smash that like button. Be sure that you are subscribed to my channel. I post videos every single week covering business, finance, entrepreneurship, mindset, strategy, tips, and tricks from my own experience. Be sure that you're subscribed. I post new videos every single week. And if you'd like to be notified every time I make a new one, be sure that you do have that notification bell clicked so that we're notified every single time I make a new video. See you in the next one. Stay safe.